And I pointed it to his head and pulled the trigger.
After a lifetime of running from her childhood trauma, Lisa Teichroeb's alcohol-fueled train went skidding off the tracks.
I remember coming to, and I was laying on the floor of a cold cement jail cell, not knowing how I got there.
As a registered nurse with nowhere left to run, Lisa was forced to face herself in front of her entire community.
Now I have to do that walk of shame. Now I have to walk into my place of employment. I guess the best way to describe it, fully naked, no hiding.
Now with 3 years free from active alcoholism, Lisa shares her story in a raw and authentic way.
Spirituality for me now, it's true grit. It's not an easy journey. I had ran away for so long. And finally, when I pulled that trigger, I was free.
What's up, everybody? My name is Dan, podcaster, public speaker, and advocate, and this is Hard Knocks Talks, your addictions podcast. Shout out to Métis Local 134 in Nipawin, Saskatchewan for bringing Donna and I out to deliver a keynote at their Empowerment Expo on overcoming adversity at all costs. If you would like to foster productive conversations about substance use in your community, reach out to Daniel at hardknockstalks.com. Good morning, Lisa. How are you?
Good morning, Daniel. I'm well.
Is there anything that you'd like to say before we jump in?
Yeah, just thank you to all the listeners, and thank you for inviting me. And I'm just excited to see where we go this morning and share some hope.
All right, let's go.
This is Hard Knocks Talks.
So you were a nurse.
I am a nurse.
You are a nurse.
I am a registered nurse.
Did you get reinstated?
I did.
Oh, yes.
Yes,
Excellent.
I am reinstated. So for the listeners to understand, I've been a registered nurse for 29 years. I worked in home care, palliative care, oncology, you name it. And I was a pretty successful nurse.
Mm-hmm.
And no one knew that I had an addiction. I kept it under wraps for all those years.
Mm-hmm. Was the result of your losing your registered nurse status because of your addiction?
It was the event that I was involved in that led me to lose my license.
Mm-hmm.
And the addiction was what led me to be involved in the event.
Mm-hmm.
And the addiction was, the root cause was the trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder that I've carried around for 51 years. Right?
Childhood stuff.
Yeah. You know, intergenerational stuff. As I continued on my healing journey and what I've been learning about intergenerational trauma, it's just mind-blowing because I didn't connect that. I couldn't understand that. And yet here I was, a successful, well-educated woman, thought that she knew everything about life because I held all these titles and degrees and so forth. And yet here I found myself sitting in a jail cell and not knowing how I got there.
So tell us about the event that led to that.
Yeah. So 3 years ago, I woke up in a jail cell and I had been a weekend binge drinker. So, of course, trying to keep it under wraps from colleagues and employers, that here I was living behind smoke screens and facades for so many years and thinking that I had everything under control. And then on weekends, after I'm done my shift, would go home and finish off 2 boxes, not just 1, 2 boxes of wine and a 26 of whatever else I could get my hands on.
Wow. You weigh like 100 pounds.
I weigh 110 pounds.
110 pounds, yeah.
Right? So that was a lot. So that goes to show you how long I had been drinking and built up that tolerance. And I kind of, it's kind of funny because here I am, I say to people, so the alcohol, what happened eventually caused me to become depressed and suicidal, but I was also going through menopause, which created me to become homicidal. So I was a hot mess, right? And then that intergenerational trauma, that childhood trauma that I experienced, the one day that weekend I had drank so much and was oblivious. I don't remember the day, so everything I share with you is about the recollection from my spouse, who knew that I was not in a good way and had made that ultimatum, like, you're dying. I am watching my wife die, and I can't sit here anymore and watch this. So what are you going to do? What are we going to do? And I remember him telling me at one point in time, are you choosing alcohol over us? And without a thought, I went, yes. I walked away.
Yeah.
Like there's just no hope. I lost all hope. But for some reason, whatever it was, there was that spark of light within me that reached out to 911. I thought I was home by myself at the time. I thought my husband had walked out and went to work and, didn't care about me, yada, yada, yada. So I thought I was alone, and apparently he was in the home and he watched all of this unfold. So I called 911. They came to my call during the process, just to keep the story going. During that process, I refused to go to my hometown hospital where I worked.
Why is that?
Because no one knew that I was an alcoholic.
Do you really think that they didn't know, like, honestly, in your soul?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Because when I came out and shed light to my colleagues why I wasn't coming back, they were just so blown away. How could somebody be so professional, so astute, and I think that's a stigma, because I think, if you're an alcoholic or if you're someone that has a chemical substance abuse, you're going to have those signs and symptoms, you're going to be disheveled, all those stigmas that are attached with somebody who has a chemical addiction, right? So what happened was, when the EMT came to my call, I refused to go into my place of employment, but I was willing to go to sister areas, I call them, right? So communities around where I lived. They denied that. They said they couldn't take me outside of that where I lived. They turned me over to my husband when they spent half an hour with me to say, okay, we'll turn you over. We just got to make sure that you're not going to do harm to yourself. That was their concern, right? And now, looking back, I can understand the position that they were in, right? They were doing their duty to the best of their ability, and not maybe understanding in my drunken state what my beautiful mind was going through. My amygdala, like when we get into the hijacking of trauma and trauma-informed care, I was not Lisa, the registered nurse. I was that 2-year-old little girl who was so scared, who was so terrified. And it's not fear that, when we think about just that general fear, okay, I'm a little afraid of this. No, it was terror. And terror is different than fear. That terror, it was crippling. That terror gave me hallucinations, that I was right back into events where I thought I was at home, sitting in the couch, and someone going to do something that was really harmful, right? So that's where I was. And when they were finally forcing me to go, I kicked into protective mode, right? Yeah. I'm protecting me. I ended up pulling out, and this is, I still to this day don't know how I knew. I didn't know that there was an air gun in my husband's dresser.
Yeah.
I'm like, he was a hunter at one point in time, but because he knew I didn't like guns, he always took them out into the garage, out of the way. But here, for some reason, there was an air gun in his dresser, and I pulled it out on the EMT. And I pointed it to his head and pulled the trigger.
Damn. Was it loaded?
No, thank gosh. Right? Thank gosh.
There was a line.
There were so many blessings that day. And back then everyone said, how can you see that as a blessing? Well, because I could have pulled that air gun out on an RCMP officer, and you and I wouldn't have been having this conversation today.
So you put it to a paramedic's head and you pulled the trigger, and you don't remember this. This is
I
just
don't
what you
remember.
were told. And I assume then the police were called?
The police were called.
Yeah.
I was then taken into custody. The standard protocol gave me 12 hours to sober up.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember coming to, and I was laying on the floor of a cold cement jail cell, not knowing how I got there, until I started looking around and going, I'm in a jail cell. What did I do?
Mm-hmm.
And then fear took over. What did I do? Because the last memory of what I had was, I want to end my life. I'm leaving. My husband's leaving me. What did I do to him? Where is he? So the RCMP, she was just wonderful. Constable came in and shared with me what had happened. And it was like I was not living my life. That someone was telling me this weird movie and that this can't be me.
Yeah.
You're lying. I'm having one of my hallucinations, or I'm still intoxicated.
Yeah.
This can't be me.
Mm-hmm.
And then she said, we're transferring you over to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And then another great trauma and shame came in, and fear, because now I have to do that walk of shame. Now I have to walk into my place of employment and be fully, I guess the best way to describe it, fully naked.
Yeah. No hiding.
No hiding.
And I think it might be safe to assume that up until this point, it was so normal to you that you didn't even really realize that you were hiding.
No, because I didn't know who I was, Daniel. Mm-hmm. I've never known who I was because I've always acted, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's part of trauma. I acted as a survival mechanism. If people, I got really good at being the shadow, not being seen, not being heard, not making waves, being what people wanted me to be, being what I thought people wanted me to be. Mm-hmm. And so that meant really disconnecting from my mental, my emotional, physical, and spiritual self, and role playing. So now we're going to go back to, okay, where was the root cause of what was happening, right? The root cause was, of course, the growing up in that alcoholic, extreme violent home, right? There was domestic abuse. I'm also a survivor, a warrior of surviving sexual abuse, right? So I've had all abuse that you can possibly think of. And I never talked about it. No one knew when I was 51 was the first time that I said I was sexually abused from the age that I can recall, from 2 to 11. And no one knew that. And so anybody who has survived those experiences know that it robs your soul. Right? So that self-hatred goes right to the core. Right? And holding on, thinking that there was something defected about me that created that. I remember running away at the age of 2. I remember that I didn't want to go home. I was with my paternal grandparents, who were my saving grace. They showed me what love was, right? And my parents came to pick me up. And both my parents, they both had their addiction issues and intergenerational trauma. My mom was a survivor of residential school and so forth. So they were taking me home, and I remember packing my teddy bear, little pair of long johns, in this little green suitcase, and thinking, if I can just get across that bridge, I'm free. No one will know where I'm going. And she caught me, brought me back, and from that day forward, I kept running. I've been a runner, ran away from myself, ran away from anybody that wanted to get close to me. I ran away.
Behind the nice clothes, behind the nice makeup, behind the nice the credentials.
Relationships. I hid behind the fact that, I'm a mom, and look at this, I'm a PTA mom. My child looks perfect. We look perfect. I drove great cars. I said all the right things, did all the right things.
Did it make you feel safe?
No.
Because that was what you were trying to do.
That's what I was trying to do.
I
was
safe.
Filling that hole within my soul with all those things that from outside that I thought was going to make me, excuse me, that I thought was going to make me feel whole. That I thought was going to make me feel loved. That I thought was going to make me feel worthy.
Good enough.
Right?
Yeah.
And it comes down to self-worth.
Good enough for who?
Yeah. For who? So I had ran away for so long. And finally, when I pulled that trigger, was the moment I was free. If that makes sense.
It's beautiful. It's haunting.
It's haunting, but it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think we have clearly explained why today is meaningful to you.
Okay. Why today?
Because it was 3 years ago today that you woke up in that jail cell.
3 years today.
Yeah.
This very time. I don't know what time it is.
10:28.
Yeah. So when I woke up and was coming to, here's another thing that was really impactful. Because I remember I was trying to make sense of where I was and what was happening. And then all of a sudden that inner knowing just said, you've always had the key to free yourself. And I thought, okay, now I've really lost it. Now I'm hearing voices. Okay. But it wasn't a voice. It wasn't coming, right? Trust me, I thought
we all hear voices, Lisa. You're not special.
Right? Thank you. Not unique, right? So I was like, okay. It was me keeping myself prisoner. And what was killing me was all these things that I was trying to do to make myself perfect and fill myself from the outside in. But I had to now, the reality was it had to come from within.
You were trying to protect little Lisa.
That's exactly what I was doing. Right? And what I found and discovered was in that protection was I was killing her. And so it was that moment when they were going to release me, I made that commitment to myself that I was going to leave everything in that jail cell. So here's what I thought I was going to do. I was going to leave everything.
Go to work on Monday.
And just leave it all behind, right? And I got really good at dissociating because that's another symptom of post-traumatic stress disorder, right? Shutting down. And transferred to the hospital. The RCMP that took me there, both of them were just so wonderful. And I started seeing these little glimpses of people being so loving and
people that you knew.
Passionate, right?
Yeah, okay.
And not judgmental. And in my mind, I thought, I am the ugliest, most disgusting, most horrible monster in the world. How could anybody love me? And here I was starting, the constable that discharged me from the detachment unit wished me well. The two that took me to the hospital said to me and stood on both sides of me and said, we got you. And you got this. Keep your head up. And I could just break down because here I was at my brokenness and I was receiving people's love. And it was at that moment I thought, this is what I heard. I have that key, but it's up to me to let that in. It's up to me to make this walk. It's up to me to break the silence. It's up to me to be vulnerable and be okay with it and to let people see me because they're seeing me at my rawest.
Let's talk now about your journey into healing. You and something that came to my mind when you did the walk of shame, so you called it, and people saw you naked, like you said. Was there a level of like, how do these people know how to look at me like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, was it strange? Like, it was like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, these people have a level of knowing that I didn't even know was real.
Yeah. Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so the journey of healing, I was smack dab. I had to heal, and I did it publicly because, I went home after like 3 years ago, sitting in that hospital. They discharged me from the hospital, and I went home and I laid on that floor, and Daniel, I've never cried. That's one thing too that I never did, as I wouldn't allow people to see me cry. Crying wasn't safe in my home. If you cried, you got it harder, right? Like I'll give you something to cry about. So I never let people see me express that emotion. The other thing I didn't do, and I hear it a lot of times too when talking with people, is I was afraid that if I allowed myself to cry, I was going to go to a point I'd never return. Right? How many of us have said that?
I've heard that before, yeah.
I can't do it right now because I have this to focus on in life. I can't break down right now because I hold a job. But you know what? What I've learned in this journey, I needed to, it wasn't a breakdown. It was a breakthrough. I didn't break down. It was breaking through those barriers, those false beliefs, those illusions that I had to protect this inner self.
Yeah.
Right? And so what that meant for me was I had to break the silence, because that's what was killing me. So I went home, and I remember laying in my living room floor, getting home. My husband said, "You're okay, pick me up." He had to return to work, and he said, should I stay home with you? And I said, no, go. Because there again, I don't want him to see me break down. And I got home, and I laid for probably a good 4 hours in my living room floor. And I had a soul cry. That from the depths of your soul where I just let it go. To the point where I had this beautiful dog, here she is in the middle of the floor with me, howling. And Molly never howled, like she wasn't a barker, but here we were. And so that made me see there too the connection with another spirit sitting with me. And she knew, and just bearing witness to what I was going through.
Such a beautiful thing.
Right? I then decided, I thought, you know what? Wait. I'm not leaving all that crap in that jail cell, because if I do, that's not healing. I need to get that. So mentally, I prepared myself to go back. I got what I needed to get through. I brought that little girl home with me. And I said, I will never abandon you again. I will honor you from this day forward. So this is the significant part about today.
Yeah.
Is I honored me today, right? 3 years ago.
Beautiful.
And I still continue to honor me. And that's what this journey was about, is reconnecting to that sacred space, that sacred spirit of who I was born to be. I wasn't born to be someone who is chemically addicted. That's what has happened to me. I wasn't born to carry the sins of those who have abused me sexually. Those are their sins to carry.
Yeah.
Not mine. I wasn't born to be a perfectionist, because I'm human and we come into the world imperfect. I wasn't born to be. So I then started to look at, who was I born to be?
Was that scary?
Terrifying.
Okay, let's take a break and shout out the Saskatchewan Union of Nurses for sponsoring this episode. Also, if you are struggling with the substance use of a loved one or have tragically lost someone to drug-related harms, reach out to Stronger Together Canada peer-led support groups by Mums Stop the Harm. If you are in search of private inpatient addictions treatment, check out Prairie Sky Recovery Centre located in Leipzig, Saskatchewan. If you are looking for help with criminal record suspensions, the Elizabeth Fry Society of Saskatchewan covers all associated costs for women or gender diverse individuals to apply for criminal record suspensions. Reach out to Chelsea at 306-668-0635. To make contact or learn more about today's sponsors, to check out our new merch, or if you want to show us some love and buy us a coffee, all of those links are in the show notes below. What were you afraid of?
Well, one, I didn't know who, right?
You afraid you were going to be a monster underneath it all?
No, here was, I just didn't know if it was too late that I'd never be able to reconnect to who I was born to be.
How old were you at this time?
I was 51, 51 years old. So after that great soul cry, and I've had many, I looked around and I seen all those pieces of all the illusions of my life, and it made me face all those masks. I can't even explain it, Daniel, what that process was like. It brought me to a place where I no longer could hide. I couldn't hide from myself because I got really good at doing that. Right?
Unbeknownst to you, even.
Unbeknownst to me, because there was still things that through that 3 years of this journey that popped up and went, whoa, I never even knew that. I never even made that connection, like learning things from my healing journey through other people, through shows like this, through the counselors that I've been to, through the somatic therapists that I've been through, and went, wow, I never knew that. And here I thought I was so intelligent. But healing isn't about just the intellect. It's the interconnectedness about the wholeness of who we are. I have to use my mental, my emotional, my physical, and my spiritual to heal.
Yeah.
And I was just trying to use that mental, intellectual part for 51 years, and look where I ended up.
Now, obviously, this experience that you had in the jail cell and coming home from it and having this experience on the floor where you're crying and you're breaking through, this is a very spiritual experience. Perhaps you didn't really know that in that moment what was happening, but tell us when you first started coming into your spirituality. Was that a slow thing, or did you have big connect to God moments?
I wish. I say that all the time. I thought when I'd hear people saying they had spiritual
come to God
awakenings
moment.
And, all those things, I thought, okay, where's the great big white shining light and the harps and, unicorns, farting rainbows, all that kind of stuff, right? I just thought, right? Where did I go with that one?
But if I saw that, I wouldn't think that's a spiritual experience. I think I'd call that a flashback.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So, I had such a disillusion about what spirituality was, Spirituality for me now is the fact that it's true grit. It's not an easy journey.
Yeah.
When we talk spiritual walk, that spiritual side was a messy process for me.
Yeah.
It's a messy place, and it was a hot mess for a lot of times, to where I am now, where I don't question that process. I just live it.
So you're not a positive vibes only type person?
Nope.
Nope.
No, I tried that for a while,
we
call that spiritual bypassing, where
that's another mask.
It just made me feel so even more depleted.
Yeah.
And even more unworthy, Yeah, I'm not the one sitting on the top of the mountain, meditating for 12 hours and I'm awakened. No, I'm the one rolling down that mountain.
Yeah, there's negative vibes up there too.
Let me
tell you.
Right?
Yes.
And so rolling down that mountain going, okay, when am I going to hit the next cliff?
Trying to dodge the odd thorn bush on the way.
Go, oops, okay, well, I'm on the edge, but guess what?
Yeah.
I still have hope because I'm on the edge. And what do I need? Humbling myself to say, I can't do this alone.
So what did you need? When you were talking about modalities a little while ago, you had these experiences and now you're sort of on the other side of the aha moment.
Yeah.
What did you need?
I need to get honest. That was the first thing, right?
Was it hard?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Did a weight come on or did a weight come off?
Weight came off. I'll tell you that. I could not lie anymore to myself.
Beautiful.
I couldn't. How can you when you're slapped right dab in a jail cell? You're walking through, and for the listeners, yes, I was all pretty and beautiful. That's not what I look like when I walk through the jail cell or through the hospital. Here was a nurse that they seen. She had soiled herself. She had vomit in the front of her shirt. Mm-hmm. Her hair was a hot mess. And yeah, I could see, waking up in the morning when I seen colleagues, like they were just dumbfounded. But there was care and compassion. Mm-hmm. You're going to get through this. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. And so then I thought, if they can see it, why won't I allow myself to see this? Why won't I allow myself? So I started doing a lot of trauma work.
What'd that look like?
Hot mess. you
Mountains and thorn bushes.
You get the theme of my healing journey. Hot mess. Being a nurse, mm-hmm. I'm teaching people about trauma.
Yeah.
We call it the wounded healer. Well, no, I was just a hot mess. That's what I was. That was really good at verbalizing what I read, but really sucky at practicing what I read. Mm-hmm. And so now I took my nursing, all that knowledge, all that experience, and I turned it on me. Mm. What would I be doing? What would I be saying? What would I be telling? How would I be advocating for my clients? If this was my client and I used me as my client, right? What do I need? Mm-hmm. I need to get help, and I need to stop, hiring myself as the therapist. Because if you hire yourself as a therapist, you got a really shitty therapist. I'm just saying that right now.
You can't sponsor yourself.
No, right? And that's what I did for 51 years. Yeah. So I thought I need to do the traditional Western modalities. And I found a wonderful addictions counselor that allowed me to express what I needed to express, to go at my own pace, to explore what I wanted to explore. Mm-hmm. And she kept me on because of how the CRNS was involved. And for those that don't know what the CRNS, that's my licensing body. It's the College of Registered Nurses Association. Because by this time, I lost my license. I surrendered it. So I voluntarily surrendered my license, knowing that I was not fit to practice. Mm. And that was an eye-opening, because that was my whole identity. So I was going through now a bigger identity crisis, right? Because I associated being a nurse as I was the most proud of being a nurse, more proud of being a nurse than I was of a mother, because I screwed up as a mother in my eyes. Yeah. Right? So I had to look at that. And I remember sitting in one of my sessions with my addictions counselor, and she said, "Lisa, I'm just going to stop you for a moment. I want to reflect on this." And this was about 8 weeks into my sessions with her. And she said, "I want you to become aware of what you just said." And I said, "What is that?" And she said, "You just named your abusers." I said, "What?" She said, "For the very first time, you just said that you were sexually abused and you identified who they were. How does that make you feel?" And so, see, Danya, 8 weeks into that, I was still in dissociation I could talk about it, but then I would just break off.
No names, no identifying.
Yeah. Like, I wasn't even aware that I was doing this. Yeah. And said that to her. So she said, "Let's sit with that for a moment." I'm really glad she did, because that is where it was like, I said it. I said that. I claimed it. I own it.
Was there any realization that you weren't claiming it before that moment?
I never claimed it.
Did you know you weren't claiming it?
Parts of me knew, parts of me didn't. Mm-hmm. I had disassociated. I think the scariest thing about my life was, even though those feelings were really intense, it wasn't the feelings. It was the numbness that scared me the most.
The not feeling.
The not feeling. Mm-hmm. That it was the scariest place for me to be in my life. And I had been there for so long. The not feeling. Mm-hmm. And I think the greatest gift that I've been given is, this is my story. It's a story. I own it, and it doesn't own me.
But you aren't it.
But I'm not it. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. I'm just sharing a story, a very
lived experience.
Mm-hmm. And whereas before, that story owned me and it destroyed me. And today I can share it. And that vulnerability, I was so scared of vulnerability, right? As any victim of abuse is, to being vulnerable. But I've learned how to embrace and change my relationship with vulnerability and see it as my greatest strength.
Would you say you changed your relationship with your trauma as well?
Yeah. I had to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I had to change that relationship.
It doesn't go away.
It doesn't go away.
Yeah.
And I think that's something very important and good to mention. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is trauma never goes away. We just learn how to have a different relationship with it and how to live with it. Not cope. I've heard that too many times. Coping.
Yeah.
No, living.
Thriving.
Learning how
to dance with it, so to speak.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and knowing that I still have a choice. I have a choice what I want to do with it. Right? Whereas when I was stuck in the throes of trauma, I didn't have no choice.
Yeah.
I felt I had nothing, right? I was so out of control. And that's why you see why people would see me trying to control everything around me. And the more I controlled everything around me, the more out of control I became. You know? And when I learned how to have a different relationship with the experiences I've had and giving back that responsibility of who owns this stuff, you know, it really was freeing.
Yeah.
I was like that free bird rising. I took myself out of the cage.
You had this profound realization, and you didn't even, like, I guess maybe your counselor did at first, that you started identifying these people in life that had brought harm your way. What did that bring on to you? Where did you go from there?
So once she brought that into my focus and area, then I thought, okay, what do I need to do? And I followed up with a somatic body worker, so going through somatic healing, because I knew there was a lot of stuff stored in my genes, right? Like in that whole soul being. So I went through somatic therapy.
And for anyone who might not know, somatic therapy is it's like a physical therapy, right?
It is.
Okay.
Becoming in tune with your body.
Yeah.
Right? Becoming aware of the sensations that you're experiencing. And one of the things that I really had a hard time with is because I had anxiety and depression. So I'm up and down, right? And that trauma, I didn't know what it meant to feel and where I was feeling it. So if I was happy, and I don't know if I really could say I was ever happy. You know, that time when they say, oh, you're a mom. So that moment of becoming a mom must have been that's joyful. That's happiness. And I went, no, that was scary.
Yeah, I was going to say, I remember, and I'm a dad, right? So and I remember when my son was born, and it was scary before it was joyful.
Yeah. That wasn't joyful for me. So I couldn't relate to that. No, this is scary. Now all the shame is kicking in because I'm not going to be a good mom because all this stuff happened to me. Yeah. How could I be responsible for a little human being? No, this is not a good time for me.
Yeah.
You know, so I had to learn where am I holding it? What was, and starting to identify with feelings. And I remember one exercise I was doing one day, and I do a lot of walking meditation. And reconnecting to Mother Nature and Earth and whatever you want to call that being. In my culture, I call it Mother Earth. So I was doing this meditation one day, and my counselor had asked me, where do you feel joy? And I thought, I don't know what joy is. I have no idea. Okay, so now I'm on a mission to find what joy is.
Oh, here we go.
We're on
a march.
Right? Yeah. I'm going to find joy. All right. So you see how I say hot mess?
Yeah, no. I laugh because healing? I know exactly. Like, I'm going to go and find this emotion. Let's go. Yeah.
Put my intellectual self on, and here we go.
Yeah.
And I'm walking with my fur baby Molly, and it was in the winter time, and I hate winter. But she taught me how to appreciate it, because here I was watching her in the field, and we called it snow diving. She'd jump up and put her nose in the snow, right? And I was just taken aback by how she was just so enjoying what she was doing. And I felt joy. And I went, this is joy. Watching my dog, who had been a rescue dog and traumatized, enjoying herself. Just be past it. Just be experiencing something she loved. She wasn't thinking about anything other than snow diving. And for that moment, that brief moment, I said, this is joy. All the while still dealing with the courts, dealing with the shame of having to go through the CRNS, because I went through 2 courts, right?
Yeah.
I was disciplined and found guilty. I pleaded guilty to the charge.
The assault?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean...
What was the charge? Because, I mean, some might call that attempted murder.
They wanted me to plead guilty to 3 offenses. Assault with a weapon. Assault with the intent to harm, and I didn't plead guilty to that one. I refused. I said I wasn't in my right mind. So how can you say what my intent was? My intent was to protect myself because I was under the influence of alcohol, but I was under the influence of the effects from post-traumatic stress disorder. And if anyone knows someone that, you know, our war vets know exactly what I'm talking about when I say and our sexual abuse survivors know exactly what I'm talking about.
And many first responders know.
And they do.
You know,
you just
providers.
zone right out. Right? And that mechanism kicks over and you go full blown into protective mode.
I had a guest last week by the name of Jamie Sinclair. She delivered a wonderful talk. We had a great conversation, and she used to be a supported living house manager. And it got to a place because she was so immersed in the chaos that the day that a gang member came in with a machete and she laughed at him, she said that was her turning point. That was when she knew that it was time for her to be done.
That something clicks.
Yeah. Well,
right?
and that's that defense, right? Like that's not funny.
Yeah.
But she's like, wait a minute, that is not funny.
Yeah.
That's me trying to defend myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I pled guilty to 2 offenses. I went through court and I was, what my sentence was 18 months. It was a summary offense. So I ended up with a criminal record. And that's another one. I can talk about the walk of shame about a criminal record.
Look at you
now. Lots, right?
Yeah. You ever get mad and be like, boy, I got a criminal record. Don't mess with
now,
me. Yeah.
Right?
You don't want to get me drunk.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is what it is. And I can sit and laugh about it today because that's part of my story. It's not who I am, right?
Yeah.
So I ended up with the criminal record, basically house arrest, right? The judge said to me, I'm giving you, I don't think that you deserve or belong to in Pine Grove, right? But I do see that you need to have some repercussion. I cannot set precedents here. So what she did was she gave me 18 months of incarceration in at home arrest. I could leave. I had to be, it was like I was a teenager again. It's kind of cool. 10:30 curfew, and had to be in my home 10:30 to 7. And I thought, oh, this is good because I'm in bed by 9:30 regularly.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, is that even really did you even notice?
No, I had to laugh because my probation officer, he said, you know, I wish all my clients were like you, like you're compliant, right?
Yeah.
And I said, because I'm a perfectionist. Like, hello, you know, I wasn't a rule breaker. Wasn't, you know, even though I didn't like the rules, I abide by them, because in my home, if you went against the rule, it was worse, right? I said, so I have no problem being at home. But where the problem then came was how society looked at me afterwards, trying to get a job.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. So actually how they're looking at you, not how you think they're looking at you.
Actually how they look at you,
okay.
right? So you walk in and you get all, because I'm unemployed now.
Yeah.
And, you know, yes, nurses make wonderful wages, but I tell you what,
the lifestyle
lifestyle of addiction, the court costs, all that, it depleted like a lot of money.
Yeah.
There goes savings. There go,
Yeah. And that may be one of the most traumatic parts about the legal system is that not only are you like you're in the worst place that you've probably ever been in,
yeah,
but it's draining your bank account and there's nothing that you can do.
Yeah. Talk about the shame and guilt, because here I have a husband who didn't deserve to have his bank account,
hardship.
Right? Now I'm inflicting another hardship. So I had to work through that stuff as well.
Yeah.
Work through the stuff that telling my story about abuse that I never shared with anyone for 51 years. And people are asking. And I just thought, how does one mentally prepare themselves to do this? Having a male lawyer who phones you up and just says, yeah, if you could just write out a brief summary of what your childhood was like.
That'd be great.
That would be great.
Yeah.
And then going through the CRNS where they had their own investigation, right?
So twice then.
I'm doing this twice.
Yeah.
And it's all public. So
now when you say public, what do you mean public? Like it's public record or it's being splashed all over the news?
So the court system is public record, right?
Yeah.
Then the CRNS, when I went through their hearing, it's open.
Yeah.
So you say Daniel, that, Lisa's going in for a hearing. I see it on the CNS board that there's a nurse that's been disciplined.
You can just tune in.
Yeah. I'm just going to send the CRNS that I want to be a part of the hearing. You put an application in and they say yay or nay, and then you can come in. Right? And hear that story. And I remember that process of, preparing myself each time, mentally, emotionally. I was doing a lot of mindfulness practice at that point in time because it's been a year now, doing my meditation, going through counseling. But it was still that mental being prepared, what I had to do to prepare myself to go through that process and say it and be in those hearings. And then to have people say, we've canceled that meeting. We're going to reschedule.
So now you've done all this preparing. You've had all of the sleepless nights or whatever that looked like for you.
Yeah.
And at the last moment, they're like, no, we're going to cancel it. So now there's another prolonging of the suffering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the best way I can describe it is, you have been holding your breath for a bit.
Yeah.
And then someone just comes and punches you in the gut.
And says, hold it some more.
And hold it some more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And that's what it was like.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how I got through it. I just got through it with the love and support from the supportive environment that I had created, my support team, which included my family, which included my counselors, which included people like yourself that I would be listening to your shows and knowing that, hey, I'm not alone here. I was treated with the utmost respect from the CRNS, right from their investigator, who's an independent contractor, right?
Yeah.
They're not associated with it, right to their the lawyers that would call me. They were very respectful. They showed compassion. They were doing their job.
Yeah.
And I shared that with someone one time that they're teachers. They're my teachers.
Yeah.
I might not like what I'm going through at the moment, but they're teaching me more about me.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were.
Everything can feel like an attack when you're going through something so heavy. Like they could be the most respectful person, and if you're in that head state where like every little thing that happens is a trigger, like what's that? It all feels like an attack.
And poor me and all this stuff,
and
how dare they do that to me? And don't they know that I've been for 29 years, been a great nurse, and now they're going to take this one time.
Yeah. This one time. I only had the gun the one time.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
So, stepping back in that mindfulness practice has helped me to go, okay, let's look at this. That's pretty serious. The seriousness of it. So when I went through the CRNS and they asked me to share my story, and I could see all these people who were from the general public, and I just said to them in a respectful way, you haven't earned the right to hear my story. And I'm not going to share my past with you. And I'm not here today to discuss that. I'm here today to show up because I'm accountable for my actions, regardless of how intoxicated I was, and regardless of how traumatized I was. I'm here to take responsibility and ownership. And the other reason I'm here today is because the justice system wouldn't allow me to express my sincere, heartfelt apology to the EMT because he was there that day.
Mm.
And so when I seen his name up on the board,
You knew he was there?
I knew he was there.
He was there?
He was there. And that was my focus. I take responsibility for what I did.
Yeah.
And that him and I will always have a relationship, a bond, a connection.
Tied together.
And that I was going to honor this story by never allowing it to happen again.
It wasn't for nothing.
It wasn't for nothing.
Yeah.
That this was not going to be in vain.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And that is going to be my sole purpose in life, was to make sure I talk about trauma, make sure I heal about trauma, make sure that I share hope.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my way of making an amends, that it wasn't just an apology, I'm sorry.
Yeah. It was a change in behavior.
It was a change in behavior.
Yeah. Tell us about how your relationship with, I don't know if you want to call creator, with the universe, tell us how that has evolved.
Well, I have always been a spiritual person, even through all of this. Obviously, I have, because I'm still living, right?
Yeah.
There's many times where I would say I probably had about 10 attempts on my life throughout from...
Like on yourself?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was one major attempt where I survived. I was clinically dead. So, I mean, how can you not be a spiritual person knowing that, I couldn't see, I had to work through that shame because I couldn't understand, why would my creator put me here?
Mm-hmm.
And being a palliative care nurse,
yeah,
for the majority of my nursing, there's so many things that I've experienced and witnessed that never left me questioning whether or not there was something greater than ourselves out there. And so my journey was about learning how to bring all parts of myself, that mental, that emotional, that physical and spiritual, into one package, into a whole, rather than trying to do it in silos, right? Rather than just focus on one, and always giving my intellect the power, thinking I'm so powerful because I'm smart, but realizing that each component of me has its own intelligence.
I really like what you just said there about giving my intellect all the power.
Mm-hmm.
That there's a saying, and I believe it's in the Bible, I'm not sure, but it says, lean not on your own understanding.
Right.
Can you name a few or even one experience where you found growth in surrendering to something other than yourself, other than your intellect? Because I mean, I've had moments like that.
Yeah.
I've had moments like that where the pain became so great, and it was just like, I wanted the future to look like a certain kind of way, and it got so bad. So tell me then, tell us about some of these experiences that you've had.
I was so working with shame. I am, still work with shame from time to time.
Of course.
It's not as intense as it used to be. And then there's things that will come up. It's a hot mess.
Oh, there's going to always be new opportunities for shame.
It's always hot mess.
Yeah.
So my hot mess moment was when I wanted to apply for nursing.
To reapply?
To reapply.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I at one point in time in this journey, I thought, I'm just going to let go of my nursing license. But that was a shame-based decision, right? I don't want to face the music. But there was a moment where I just said, no, I worked really hard for my RN degree.
Yeah.
I made lots of sacrifices.
Yeah.
So I decided, you know what? No, I'm not going to let it go, because that's shame-based stuff. That's stuff I have to heal. So let's put that on the shelf, that idea that I'm going to let my RN license go. But let's go get employment, because I need to feed myself and clothe myself, pay bills and all that stuff. So I went into, we relocated to a small area around the Saskatoon area, and I decided that humility was another thing that I embraced in my healing journey. So honor, humility, hope, honesty, those are the 4 H-men that I include in my recovery now, right? And I walked into a place of potential employment and gave the resume over. And of course, they were so excited because my resume looks really well as a registered nurse.
Mm-hmm.
And I just explained to them, I'm not here to apply for a nursing position. I'm here to apply for whether or not you have a position as a cook or cleaner or a health aide. I'm willing to do whatever work you have available,
Mm-hmm.
And shared my story.
Hmm.
I owned it, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
remember I said that by this time I was a year into my healing, and I owned it and walked out. I could see the look in her eye. She was so happy to see that the potential of an RN. And then when I told her, she went, ooh. And yeah, I got we'll give you a call. We're not hiring anyone right now, but we'll give you a call.
Yeah.
You know what that means.
Yep.
Right? I walked out and I remember sitting in my car and that soul cry came. Just the dam broke and I just sat there and cried and cried and cried. And the soul cry to me it's beyond the ugly cry. Because it's like, I don't know, the whale song, right?
I was going to,
You hear all these deep. And so, but it wasn't a cry of shame. It was a cry that I was rising up because I found integrity and I found self-worth.
So this wasn't painful?
No.
This was gratitude.
This was so much gratitude. It was the song of freedom that I could walk in, keep my head up, held high.
Yeah.
You know, not the snobby nose out up in the air.
Yeah, yeah. So tell me about, would you call yourself a herbalist now?
I'm studying to become a herbalist.
Because
I'm waiting to get my master's. I'm working towards my master's.
When did you start to find value in the medicines that were all around us in the world?
Okay, well, I tried the traditional Western, the 12-step programs and all that. And I still belong to support groups, but I was still finding that there were things missing.
Mm-hmm.
And so being able to listen to what I needed, there were still things that I needed to fill my soul with.
Mm-hmm.
That I wasn't getting from all these other things. And so a lot of times this one thing that's all that's going to help. This is what you need. You just need to get into counseling and talk about it. Okay, no, that helps me with the mental and emotional, but I need something more. So I started listening to what I needed. Okay, and I was menopausal at the time. Remember I said
homicidal.
Suicidal, homicidal. Yeah, menopause really makes a homicidal, I tell you. Huh. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
But I was having these experiences where the hot flashes and the night sweats and just all these symptoms, and being a nurse, I didn't want to go on to the HRT, like the hormonal replacement therapies and so forth. So I did my research, joined a college of, can I name drop?
Sure.
Wild Rose College. And I enrolled because I wanted to know naturally, how can I start looking at chemical dependency and treating it naturally. I'm a big one into neuroplasticity. I'm a biology geek, so I wanted to know how these plant medicines would help me with not only my addiction but my menopause, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I joined and took more education, and I always loved gardening. And the other therapies that I've used. So herbalism, art therapy, reconnecting to my culture was the greatest one.
Mm-hmm.
That was the greatest one. It helped me with my identity. So I always say that I'm from two worlds with one spirit, that Cree, my Cree ancestors, but also my Scottish ancestors, and doing that exploratory as to how they used medicine.
Yeah.
Scottish, they have a whole history too. Their Cree and Scottish are very similar. And I was looking and seeing.
And a very dark history too.
Very dark
history.
Right?
Residential schools were a thing before they were here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so looking at going back into my ancestry on both sides and going, wow.
Yeah.
That intergenerational trauma, because there was intergenerational trauma on both sides of my family.
Yeah.
And so doing that, it really opened up more doors of healing for me, because then it introduced me to things like intergenerational trauma, neurogenesis, like all these things.
What?
Like the plural, neurogenesis.
You're going to drop a big word
yeah,
on the show. You're going to have to explain
I gotta go through it, right? So when we look at neuroplasticity, right? The rewiring of our brain. So neurogenesis is those new neurons that are being developed. And so doing a lot of that research. And I mean, I'm not a Dr. Google. I'm actually reading the research out there that, through the journal, and connecting with people who know what they're talking about, because I'm not an expert on this, right? I have a gateway of nursing, and that's where it is, but gives me an opportunity to learn more. So I was starting to learn more about it and going, okay, this is sounding like it's resonating with me. I'm connecting with this. So really exploring those other alternatives, how pet therapy helped me, how music helped me, how art therapy helped me, cultural therapy helped me, getting back to cultural stuff, and plus all the other incorporating Western. So the CBT, right? The cognitive behavioral therapy, the EMD, the somatic, all those Western stuff. So it's just not one, because they're all interconnected. And when I started doing that research, seeing so many similarities, they're just now being relabeled. But we've been doing these. We've had these keys. And with the research going on and all of that, it's just, okay, it's expanding into more.
You're developing your own practice now. Are you a coach, or because I saw you on LinkedIn, you have a LinkedIn profile now. People can find Lisa Teichroeb on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Tell us about what you're building. Tell us about your practice.
So I got my RN license back.
Awesome.
And I've been working now for a year. And another good thing is that place that I walked in 2 years ago and didn't accept my application. They just phoned me yesterday. Everything happened yesterday, man. Like, isn't that weird?
It is weird.
January 11th, 3 years sober, and offered me a job as a registered nurse. So isn't that awesome? So, but I want to, because I worked in this healthcare field for so long and I still see a lot of disconnects, I'm going into private practice. I've gone through recovery coaching. I'm getting my herbalist, and I want to share with people what I've gone through, offering them the same things that I had gone through, a blend of Western, a blend of holistic, using my cultural practices that I have, how I've reconnected to the importance, and allowing other people, or giving other people an option, right? And then connecting with the healthcare works in silos, right?
Yeah.
We know that.
We know that.
Okay. And so now it's about taking back ownership of our healthcare. And I'm really about facilitating and fostering and promoting empowerment.
So are you practicing? Like, are you taking clients?
I am taking clients.
Where can people find you?
They can just go to my LinkedIn, Lisa.Teichroeb LinkedIn account. There's the email there, and they can just give me a message.
Awesome.
And all my, I'm a firm believer that you have within you what you need. It's just connecting, finding someone to help you connect to that inner stuff and what you need, being willing to listen to what you need, right? Even when you don't know what you need. So yeah, I just offer the support, the guidance, the coaching, strength-based. I'm empowerment. I'm not one to promote one recovery pathway.
Yeah.
Right? It's about what you need.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't like being told what someone thought I needed.
No.
But I liked when someone, like this addictions counselor that I had, inspired me.
Yeah.
Right? Observed. Shared her observations and allowed me the ability to connect with what I needed to be connected with.
Yeah. Donna and I are delivering a keynote
I see that.
On January 20th in Nipawin. It's an empowerment expo.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if there might be a place there for Lisa to set up a booth.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
I can find out.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Okay. If I can leave one word or one saying that really got me through every day I say this.
Please.
Defeat is not an option. It's a choice. And I choose to rise up. So I share that with the listeners. Know that you're not alone and that there are people there willing to see you and help you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us today. We will let you go, my friend.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. If you got something out of today's episode and you are not yet subscribed to us on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications. We go live every Sunday, every Friday morning, every Sunday evening right here on Facebook and YouTube. If you don't have time to watch us for an hour, you can find all our recorded uploads on Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. That's all I got for you today. We will see you next time. Take care, my friends.
Say, this is Hard Knocks Talks.